No, June 2nd is La Plaza. June 9th is the Chinese. Hello, hello. Hi, hi. Hello. Hello, hello. Am I here? Yes. Okay. Oh, this is low.
30 seconds photo. In the meantime, you could turn off the
Eva, look down, Eva.
A typical day.
Eva, look down, please.
Typical day.
Look down, please. Look down, please. Look down this way. Eva, s'il vous plaît, Eva. Look down, look down. Eva, look down, please. Eva. Eva, this way, look down, please. Eva, please. With the big smile, please, Eva.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last one, please, Eva. Last one. Thank you very much. Here we are.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you.
That's nice. Thank you. What?
Before we get started, we just want to ask everyone to please put your phones on silent.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sitting on my own hair. Which is half mine, half not mine. I don't know which one I'm pulling out.
Hello. I'm so excited to be sitting with the both of you.
Thank you.
So first, tell me how the two of you first came together.
Oh my God, how did we come together? Well, it was love at first sight.
Indeed. Eva's my favorite.
I'm
my
an academic.
Yes.
I am an academic
Truly.
at heart. And so the minute we were connected, I'm like a data, statistic girl. I'm like, give me the facts. I want to know the facts. And so this one is like all about statistics and data and then creating a narrative around that. And so we were a match made in heaven, I think.
Indeed. And actually, it was at Cannes.
Ah.
2019 at the Women in Motion party. I walked up to Eva and said, "I'm Dr. Stacy Smith." She's like, "Don't leave me. Don't leave me."
I cornered her at the party,
Yes.
like Brad Pitt's passing by, and everybody's. And I was like, "I need to talk to Stacy Smith," because she did a lot of work for the Times Up movement.
Yes.
And so that's how I was made aware of all the work that she had done. And then I was like, "Where are all these numbers coming from?" They're like, "Stacy Smith." I was like, "Okay, I need to talk to her." So then we commissioned more studies, and I was like, you know what I really want to know, and then I would get really specific, and she's like, how specific do you want to get? And so any question I had, Stacy she's like, I'll get right back to you.
And so much so, to Eva's credit, I mean, I emailed her and she's like, "Come to my house." And so literally within 24 hours, we're at your kitchen table talking about research. So she walks the talk in ways that are extraordinary.
Now, Stacy, can you tell me about starting the inclusion list?
Sure. Well, the inclusion list is something we just released a couple of days ago in collaboration with the Adobe Foundation, and A.B. White is here. There she is, right there. And this was really a collaborative effort to reward folks that are doing well on screen when it comes to representation across multiple categories: gender, race, ethnicity, LGBTQ plus IA, and people with disabilities, as well as people over the age of 65. So are we showing the stories that aren't told? And then who's working behind the camera, in particular in 10 key positions? And so this inclusion list, and my team is here: Brooke, Sam, Catherine, Ariana, and Kate, representing the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. We really feel like this is the new top 100. Rather than focusing on box office, because we know that correlates with economic success, let's focus on those folks that are making decisions to include folks that typically have been left out of storytelling. And it's been absolutely amazing, the reception to the list.
And I think that's important. The metric in which you measure success is important. And Stacy and I talk about this all the time, because like a lot of times studios and platforms and networks can go, "We've doubled the amount of women behind the camera, and they went from 1 to 2.
Right.
And you're like, okay, technically you did, but
Right.
you still only hired 2 women, you know? And so how you measure success is really important. And so inclusion being that metric is so awesome. It's great because you can applaud the people who are doing it right, recognize them, and also the inclusion part is about building a pipeline of talent. And building a pipeline of talent in front of, but behind the camera, and tapping into a talent pool that's not usually tapped into, right? Like if we're going to be innovative, you have to be diverse in who's telling that story. We all know Romeo and Juliet, but from a female perspective, that's very different. From a person of color, Romeo and Juliet's very different. From, you know, an LGBTQ perspective, that story is very different. And so I think we have to start tapping into different points of view. And a study like this really opens the door to decision makers recognizing, oh, okay, so there is talent elsewhere. We don't have to tap into the same people we've been using all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a few findings from the list. 7 of the top 10 films were directed by women of color. The first 47 films on the list had directors from historically marginalized communities. What does that say about storytelling and who should be telling these stories?
Well, the findings line up exactly with what you would expect if you're paying attention to the data. Now, most films in Hollywood are failures, and I don't say that in a harsh way or trying to be antagonistic or condescending. It's just if you look at their score, anything below a 59 as an academic out of 100 is typically a not passing grade, and lots of tears and concerns about performance. But not in Hollywood. People can get a low Rotten Tomatoes score or Metacritic score and still have a very successful career. But the groups that are typically producing the strongest stories, the highest Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic scores, are women of color. I mean, so 7 out of 10 of those top 10 movies are driven by women of color that have higher scores typically on average than individuals from other identity groups. Now, what's really interesting is we just ran the numbers on Flaming Hot. So if we were to put Flaming Hot in, Eva would make it to the top again with many of those women of color, because you're hiring, we can't evaluate on screen because we haven't seen the movie. You do have a Latino lead, but behind the camera, your unit heads get you a score that's really high. And so what does that say? It's a value of the audience. That list reflects what the audience wants. And it was so, I think, important to us in the Adobe Foundation to celebrate that achievement, particularly after facing 2 pandemics. People needed good news, and we wanted to lift up who was doing it right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Flamin' Hot, so congratulations, Eva.
Thank you.
Eva is making her directorial debut. It comes out in 2 weeks, I believe.
June 9th.
June 9th.
Disney Plus and Hulu.
Yeah.
I don't know where, is that Europe? Disney Plus? Is that here? Yes. Okay. So I know Hulu's not. My feature directorial debut.
Yes. So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And if we look at the statistics, and I'm also a data girl, so I like numbers and facts. If we look at certainly the big budget films that are being given to women versus men in Hollywood, it's staggering. So what was this process like for you, finally stepping into this feature directorial role?
Yeah, you know, I have been directing TV for 12 years, so it's not like I just was like, I'm going to direct. I've been directing, and I've really touched every rung of the ladder. Like I did 2 short films, and then I did episodic. I did 1 hour, I did half hour, I did multicam, I did single cam, I did pilots. And as you progress, the next evolution of that is features. But I didn't go, I'm going to direct a feature. This story found me.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm the only one who can do it. I really felt that. I was like, I'm the only one who could do this story. And I remember, pitching Searchlight, and my agent, I had to go in many times, just like an actor auditions, the director auditions. And my agent, the last time I went in, she goes, how are you feeling? And I said, well, I'm so nervous. She goes, that you're not going to get it? And I said, no, I'm scared I'm going to get it. And then I'm going to have to do everything I just said. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Because I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to shoot it this way, and we're going to do this. And then I did, and I got the job. But here's the crazy thing is, like, going into it, I felt the weight of my community. I felt the weight of every female director because we don't get a lot of bites at the apple. And my movie wasn't low budget by any means. It wasn't $100 million, but it wasn't $2 million. And so it was funny because Stacy and I were talking about it, and we were trying to say, when was the last Latina directed studio film? I was like, oh, I'm not the first, I know that. And then she's like, right, but when's the last one? And we were looking, it was like 20 years ago. And you go, okay, we can't get a movie every 20 years. Like a female shouldn't do that. And so the problem is, if this movie fails, people go, oh, Latino stories don't work. Oh, female directors really don't cut it. Oh, so we don't get a lot of at-bats. A white male can direct a $200 million film, fail, and get another one.
Right.
Right? Like, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're like, I tried!
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. I felt like, oh my God, we get one at-bat. We get one chance. I gotta make it right. I gotta do it well. I gotta work twice as hard. I gotta out-hustle everybody in the room. I gotta work twice as fast. I gotta do it twice as cheap. I gotta, like, you really carry the generational traumas with you into the film, into the making of the film. And so for me, it fueled me. I was just like determined and excited for the journey. And we have a beautiful film. We won South by Southwest where we premiered, and our critics and the reviews have been like amazing. I just cry every time I read one because it's landing with people in the way we made it, with the intention of which we made, which is like inspirational and a story from a community you may not even think about. And so Hollywood gets to define what heroes look like, and I thought, oh, what if this hero looked like me, was brown and sounded like my dad and sounded like my tío and sounded like the community I grew up in. Like, what if I could create what a hero looks like? And that's what I got to do, and that's what I did. And so having that opportunity was a blast, but also, like I said, I took it with great responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
We had Michelle Yeoh here a few days ago, and she said, if Crazy Rich Asians was not a success, I wouldn't be here. And Hollywood would not have taken more chances. So I think that really goes with the point that you're making, which is, if you're a woman, if you're from a marginalized community, Hollywood, there's a lot of pressure to do well, where otherwise it's, here's $100 million, do it again.
Yeah, well, they try to position minorities as the model minority. So if you look at in 2019, that year, the 5 out of the last 6 directors that won the Oscar were Mexican. So in your head, you go, oh, Latinos are doing great in Hollywood. And you go, no, that may be the case. Like, we won, that director won that movie in that year, but like, we're still underrepresented in front of the camera. We're still underrepresented behind the camera. We're still not tapping into the females of the Latino community. As a matter of fact, we were at 7% in TV and film. Now we're 5%. Right. So the myth that Hollywood is so progressive is a myth when you look at the data. 100%. And so I just spoke at Gold House, which really was responsible for a lot of the Crazy Rich Asian success. Like the AAPI community mobilized and said, this movie is not just for us, but it's about us and by us, and we should pay attention. And they really mobilized in a way that was unprecedented and had tremendous success. And then this year with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and so my message to them was like, don't take your foot off the gas, because the illusion is great. So there's equity with AAPI, and you're like, no. I mean, yes, we had some wins, but like, no, we still have so much more to go. And so that's what I think the data is so important, because the illusion is that Hollywood is progressive. The reality is that we're still far behind in equal representation.
Now, to Stacy's point that you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk, and you founded your production company, Unbelievable, which I love that name, and you did that really at the beginning of your mainstream career, so to speak. And from the beginning, you knew that you wanted to be behind the camera and helping to tell stories that should be told and shepherd diversity and inclusion. So being that you haven't just been an actor, you've also been a producer and a director, what sort of change have you really seen behind the scenes from that time in 2005 till now?
Gosh, was it been 2005? Oh my God, I'm 100 years old. The disappointment is I haven't seen much change. I think, again, like I said, the illusion is like, oh, there's so much change. It's not. And that's why people think I'm an actor turned director. I've always been a producer director. When I landed in Hollywood, I was producing live events, I was producing comedy shows, I was really a producer, and I fell into acting. And even when I was acting, I felt like I wasn't reaching my full potential as a human being. Like I was like, I go to work, I stand on a mark, I say my lines, and I go home. I don't edit it, I don't cast it, I don't put the music over it, I don't market it, I don't have a say in anything. And that really bothered me. And so immediately I was just like, I don't like this. I'm gonna go back to producing and directing, because I really wanted to control the final product and also create the opportunities that I wanted, not only for myself, but for my community and for women. And so I remember when I produced Telenovela and Grand Hotel, I was producing and directing those. And Grand Hotel, I said, I want a female DP. And, well, first I said, we were looking for a DP, and the studio sent me resumes, and it was like Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? And I was like, I'm sure they're lovely people, and I'm sure they're qualified. Do you have any female resumes? And they go, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And then sure enough, they sent me female resumes. I interviewed, I hired a female DP. So there's not a person in a tower going, let's not hire them. Like, they're just unconsciously hiring who they always hire. And that's what I mean about building this pipeline. And so for me, I consciously hire with the lens of people of color and women. And so when I was staffing up the 13 director spots, I said, I only want women. We ran out of women only because the few women that were working in episodic TV were working, and so they weren't available or whatever. Not that there's not talent there, it's just like scheduling. So we filled up like 6 spots with women, and I said, okay, now the rest, people of color. And then, filled up a couple more spots. And so literally the last person to get a job on that show was a white male director. And because I had that lens. And then I got to build this resume for these directors who normally don't get the shot. And now they can get the next episodic TV or a short film or a film, because they go, have you done it before? Right? And then they go, yeah, I have. And they did it for me. And they were mentored, and they were supported, and they had the infrastructure available to them. That doesn't always happen.
And to your point, had you not been there and asked that question,
Yeah.
can I have female resumes? It would have been Tom, Dick, or Harry.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a different person who is in that decision-making position, then we don't see change.
100%.
And Elizabeth, I just want to underscore what a statistical anomaly this is, what's happening. From 2007 to 2019, we have seen no change in the percentage of Latinos on screen. None in the top 100 feature films. We've rerun the data for the more recent years. We haven't released it yet, but there's no increase. Behind the camera, Latino directors, there's no increase. Again, less than 5. She's in a community of less than 5. And so when we look over time and see no change, there has to be a push and an acceleration of film financiers, sales agents, the multinationals, the streamers, everyone coming together. And I want to just pay homage to a particular multinational. We have Veronica Kwan here, Vandenberg, from Universal Pictures. And I just want to single out, Universal Pictures was the top distributor on screen and behind the camera on our top 100 inclusive films that we just put out. And Universal Pictures is run by who? Donna Langley, right? And so having Universal present, celebrating the list, but also that's the way change is going to happen in every gatekeeping position. We need folks who care about inclusion. And so can we just give Universal Pictures a round of applause? Thank you for being here.
Now, the list, as you said, is out there to celebrate who's doing it right. But are you also hoping that by putting out these numbers, that it's a call to action?
100%. I mean, I can't wait for Flaming Hot to come out so we can talk about change is easy. And people, and what we're moving towards is not only this year, TV and streaming are up next with the Adobe Foundation. Amy and I are co-collaborators and co-conspirators. But the goal is to really create the IMDb for inclusion so that no one has to beg a studio head. All of that information is present in any unit head position and on screen. That data is accessible to them. And that's really what it's about, making sure that people in the gatekeeping roles have what they need to make the decision, bring people in interview. And as long as you make sure you're interviewing women, people of color, and folks from other historically marginalized communities, the best talent's going to rise up.
Yeah.
And it's not going to look like the past. That is exciting. And so we're in this to create change, to reward and push the needle as far as possible.
And I will say, in making Flaming Hot, like Searchlight was so supportive, and they think the reason they hired me was for authenticity. Like, this story is a Mexican American story. I am Mexican American. My North Star was authenticity in all departments, production design and costume design, in props, in cinematography, and so they really allowed me to bring talent that didn't have the resume. And I remember trying to hire my DP, and Searchlight's a very prestigious studio. It's beautiful. It has a lot of award-winning films, and they said, we want to surround you, you know, with talent that can support your vision. And so they had me interview a lot of cinematographers, a lot of Latinos, a lot of Oscar winners, and Federico Cantini was the one that wanted to make the same movie as me. Like, when you interview cinematographers, a lot of them have great ideas, but you're like, oh, it's not the movie I want to make. But that's a great version of it. It's just not the version I wanted to make. And I remember Federico read the script in 30 minutes, and he felt the way I felt. I'm the only one who can shoot this. And I was like, right? And so I fought for him, and they were a little resistant in the sense of, well, he's never done a movie of this size. And I said, I've never done a movie of this size. You haven't done it till you've done it, right? And that's what I mean by, once it's on your resume, you're always judged by your past work. What did you just do as an actor, as a director, as any department head? And that's the problem in our industry, is like, you can't get the job if you don't have the body of work, and you don't have the body of work because you haven't gotten the job. And so I had to convince Searchlight. I was like, I know I haven't done a movie, and I haven't done a movie of this scale, but this is what I'm going to do. And they believed in me, and they were like, okay. And then when I hired Federico, you know, same thing. He's like, I know I haven't done a movie of this size, but I can. I know I can. And it's like having that belief in yourself, convincing the studio in your vision. And I think I cried more when Federico got the job than when I got the job, because they were like, they called and they go, okay, we'll let you have Federico. And it is stunning. And Searchlight wants to use him for every other movie. Like, they were like it took one job for him to be recognized, one job for this DP to arrive at a place where people go, oh yeah, you are talented. I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been saying. You know, and same thing with our costume designer, Elaine Montalvo, our props master, Joshua Aragon, our production designer, Brandon Mendez. I mean, if you look at our crew list, our editor, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I love when the credits roll, because you just see all the Latino names. And like, every time we're at a festival, those things are important. The credits are very important. So people like sit. Our composer's Brazilian, he's amazing, Marcelo. And we didn't compromise the movie because we wanted to hire Latino talent. It made it better. And I think that's the other misconception is like, oh, I've got to do a diversity hire so that the talent may be lower. No, there's talented people in our communities that just aren't getting the opportunities.
Right. See, this is why she's my favorite. I can just sit here.
But I will say, there was zero resistance from Searchlight for me to have every department head. So, and then you see, that's why I scored so high on your data, is because there was no resistance. They were like, great.
And I didn't even do grade inflation. Like, you just got the grade, you know? You just scored the score. So.
Yes.
Now, Eva, the film, as you said, it's about hope and inspiration, but it's a story about how corporate America has underestimated the Hispanic community for so long. That is kind of art imitating life.
Yeah.
Where do you think, going beyond Hollywood now, that industries worldwide, not worldwide, let's say, you know, in America, how they have changed with their response to Hispanic?
Well, it's so interesting because, as Stacy was saying, we're 5% in media, TV and film, but we're 20% of the U.S. population. We're the fastest growing demographic in the United States. We have trillions of dollars of buying power. 28% of ticket buyers at the box office are Latino. Your film will not succeed if you do not have the Latino audience. You know how many Latinos showed up for Crazy Rich Asians? You know how many Latinos bought a ticket for Fast and the Furious? Like, we over-index in movie going. And so why shouldn't there be content for us if we are the ticket buyers, if we are the viewers? And so for me, I take great pride in, like, you know, kind of throwing around that buying power weight of like, you know, if you don't speak to us, we may not buy that movie ticket. And yeah.
Well, a lot of studio heads will say, well, they come anyway. And I'm like, you're discounting 40 years of empirical research that says people want to see themselves reflected in stories. So that's a baseline. Imagine if we had compelling narratives for a particular community, like the Latinos, the numbers would be astronomically high. And so that's why I think the authenticity behind the camera will then, in terms of streamers, in terms of viewers, that's the dividend that you want.
It's so funny because I don't know if you guys know Justin Lin. He's creator of the Fast and Furious franchise, and Fast and Furious actually way over indexed with Hispanic audiences. But there's not. It doesn't have necessarily Latino cast, and it was always a study that was like, why is Fast and Furious so resonating so much with the Hispanic market? And if you meet Justin Lin, he grew up in LA, you know, like south of East LA. Like, I think Justin Lin's Mexican. Like, he is Mexican at heart. And we sat down and I was like, oh my God, he grew up in the barrio. He grew up with these people. So his lens in which he told these stories actually had a lot of Hispanic cues. And so you go, oh, this makes total sense because the authenticity in which he told those stories was just his view of how, you know, how he saw the world and these characters. And so I was like, you know, this is another great diverse filmmaker who knocked it out of the park. And you see that franchise, you know, what, 10? Is it, are they on 28? That's 28. But it's exciting because it's another success story. But in corporate America, back to your point, is like, what Richard Montañez, who the movie is about, Flaming Hot, it's really not about the Flaming Hot Cheeto, it's about Richard Montañez. He, thematically, I wanted to explore what happens when opportunity is not distributed equally. Because it's not talent is. You can be talented, and you can be talented, you can be talented, but do you get the opportunity? No. And so we've all been told, you know, oh, maybe that job is not for you, or, you know, you're a woman, I don't think you really should direct, or, you know, oh, ideas don't come from somebody who looks like you. And he dared to ask, but why not? But why not? Like, his naivete was his superpower, because he didn't know he was like breaking protocol or that he wasn't worthy. He just thought like, but I have an idea. But I have an idea. Why don't? So who needs to hear my idea? And they were like, oh, I don't know, the CEO. And he's like, okay, so can I call him? And that's how I am all the time. Like, I was telling a story the other day, like I was like, so how does it work marketing wise? Because we always talk about like, okay, why don't you get a film and you go through the trouble of financing it, and then you go through the trouble of getting it made, and you get through the trouble of, you know, getting it to this point where we are. And then Stacy goes, what's your marketing dollars? I go, I don't know, Stacy, I'm exhausted just getting it this far. I don't know. You know, it's just like, it's a never ending struggle for that. But I was like, I don't know, let me ask. And I just, you know, I call people and I go, so can you tell me this? And they're like, why is Eva Longoria calling us? And I'm like, I don't know, because I have a question. Like, I think we shouldn't be afraid to ask. In any aspect of our lives, but specifically if it's something you don't understand, the only way to expand your brain and your awareness is to ask the questions.
Now, you spoke about not feeling fulfilled, just being an actor. But the role of Gabrielle Solis was groundbreaking, really, for network television at the time. So when you got that script, did you realize the magnitude of that?
No, God, no. When I read Desperate Housewives, it was like the 9th audition I had that day, and I was exhausted. It was pilot season, and so pilot season is when all the shows are casting. So I was changing in my car, driving from like nurse, okay, and then prostitute, prostitute, okay, and then like I was driving Burbank, Culver City, back to Burbank. I mean, it was like, oh my God, it was horrible, and it was my last audition of the day, and it was like 7 p.m. I was exhausted, and I didn't read the script. I just had read, I studied My Sides, and I remember going in, and Mark Cherry had never cast before. It was his first casting session. And he goes, what did you think of the script? I go, I'm sorry, are you talking to me? Like, they never talk to you. You know, they're like, next, okay, great, good job, like, and I was like, are you talking to me? Are you asking me a question? And he goes, what did you think of the script? And I said, look, I didn't read it. I didn't read it. I read my part, and my part's amazing. And he said he knew I was Gabby Solis in that moment. Because it was like the most selfish thing I could have said. It was like, it's like blah, 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 and it's me. Blah, blah, blah. Susan, I don't even know the other characters' names, but she's amazing.
Yeah.
And
He's like, and it's her, here she is.
Yeah, he was like, it can't be this easy, because I was the first one that day of casting. I was the first girl, first role. And he literally was like, is it going to be this easy to cast all the roles? Because he's like, I think she's the one.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have changed about that role or the show to bring it into modern times?
No. Oh, I mean, I don't think we could do the show today.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's things that, I said and did that I don't think I could say and do today. But, it was a time where we did 24 episodes a year. Do you remember 24 episodes a season? Like, that was a different time and era. Yeah. So it was a decade of my life. And I really used Desperate Housewives as my film school.
Right.
I mean, I enjoyed every minute of being on set. And I asked questions, and I was like, what's that? What do you mean? What do you mean by this lens? And what's checking the gate? And we shot on film. That's how old I am. And I was like, I want to load it, and I would load the camera with the film, and I was just constantly curious, and I was always on set, even if it wasn't my shot or whatever. I would just keep asking questions. They'd let me operate the camera, and so yeah, it was like my playground. It was my film school.
And I did want to ask, it's shocking to me that you were not nominated for an Emmy for that.
Oh, yeah.
And your co-stars were.
Yeah.
What do you think the
It's so funny
reasoning-
because that first year, everybody was nominated for a Golden Globe, and I wasn't. But I didn't know what a Golden Globe was. Like, I was like, wow, what is this? Like, so I don't, and also, I still don't do the work for that. And I know people are like, you won an Oscar. I'm like, I don't know. I really, you're when you're making a film, when you're making a TV show, it's so much work that you do look up, and then we did win the Golden Globe. We did win the Emmy. We won so much as a collective. And I was like, this is amazing. But I never thought my individuality had anything to do with it. I really felt like this global phenomenon of these women and this Wisteria Lane was the magic. I don't think any one of us was the magic. But I remember when Felicity won the Emmy, you would have thought I won the Emmy. I mean, I almost went up there and with her. Like, I was like, we won! And she felt the same way. She was like, we won, And then we won the Golden Globe many, many years in a row. So for me, I was like, this is like crazy. But then the second year I was nominated, and it was just odd. Like, I don't know how to do that award thing. I was just like, you're it was odd. And so I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know enough. I was such a baby to know how to navigate that world, because it is something to navigate. I mean, you need a whole machine behind you for it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I thought we just show up in pretty dresses. I don't know.
Yes. Now we're about to jump to audience questions, but I do want to ask, you have an Apple series coming up that you are executive producing and starring in.
Yeah.
So I want to know, when do you decide to take a role on screen and not just produce as well?
This one was hard because this is going to be my first time back on TV in a while. And I like directing and being behind the camera, so I usually like to direct what I'm in as well. But this was a series, it's called Tierra de las Mujeres. It's in Spanish. I speak, it's half Spanish, half English, but like my brain hurt. It was such a good challenge for me. I've never acted in Spanish. I'm with the amazing Carmen Maura from Spain, who plays my mother. And Ramon Campos wrote the script, and I met Ramon because I was a fan of, I don't know if you guys saw Velvet, Chicas de Cable, Grand Hotel. He's an amazing Spanish writer. And we became friends, and I said, Ramon, I want to shoot in Spain. Write me something in Spain, in the wine country, and like something fabulous. And literally he did. And he goes, I wrote it. And I was like, oh, shit. Now I have to do it. And I read it, and it was based on a book, and I loved it. And he's like, when we want Carmen Maura to be your mother. And I was like, Carmen Maura? Like Pedro Almodovar's Carmen Maura? And he was like, yes. And so I jumped at the chance to shoot in Europe, because I love Europe, and I'd never shot here. And so it was my first time. I was 6 months outside of Barcelona and Figueras, and it was, with the Spanish crew and with this amazing artistic community that I'd never really experienced. And so for me, it was amazing. And yeah, it's with Apple, and I don't know when it's coming out because we're still editing now. We just finished it.
Well, we're very excited to
Thank
see
you.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have time for a few audience questions. Okay, great. I believe there's a mic.
Hi, should I stand? No. Okay. Hi, my question is for Eva. I would like to ask you, beside your amazing career that of course will live forever after you, the artistic career, I would like to ask you, what would you like to be your legacy as a human being?
As a human being, definitely
Yeah.
my philanthropy. I mean, I think ever since my son was born, I have felt such an urgency to fix the world. And people go, oh, you know, how has your life changed since your son was born? I'm like, I have anxiety about the environment, about gun control, about, you know, politics, about the divisiveness of politics, you know. So I'm definitely way more involved. And so I think, you know, my philanthropic work in helping women reach their full potential through educational programs or entrepreneurial programs is really my life's work. And I think if you look at the pie chart of my time and my day, most of it is probably dedicated to my foundation.
Any more questions?
Hi Eva, thank you for today. It's been quite inspirational. I know you're quite close with Victoria Beckham. Is there anything you would like to do with the UK film industry or London-based?
Well, you know, I did shoot, actually I do lie, I'm a liar. I shot something with Jack Whitehall in Wales. I did a series in Wales I was only there for like 3 weeks. And I loved it. That was so much fun. I wish I could play an English person. 'Cause I actually do a great Victoria impression, so that's about as far as it goes. But no, I love in general. And like Flaming Hot, I'm just started doing press in the UK for it, and I was nervous that it's such an American story that I was like, oh, I wonder if it'll resonate. And every UK journalist has been blown away, because there's no Flaming Hot Cheetos in the UK. You guys don't like spicy. Yeah. But that's the point, is like the Flaming Hot's not the point of the story. But yeah, the UK journalists have been so receptive to the message and the story, and like, I can't believe that happened. So and 99% of the movie is true. Like when people go, did that really happen? That really happened. Did that happen? That really happened. So the reception has been great, and yeah, I would love to do something. One of my favorite movies is Spice World, so there you go. Here comes Spice World 2!
I mean, I'm here for it. That's also one of my
spicy. I'm Spicy Spice.
Spicy Spice.
I'm Spicy Spice. Yes.
You should pitch that to your
Yeah.
friend Victoria. I would be the first one in line at the theater, Eva.
Yes.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Eva. It was so interesting today. I'm wondered, have you got any routine? I mean, something you do every morning, like reading, sport, swimming, that helps you to think about your next project, for example.
It's just yeah, I definitely am a creature of habit, so I definitely have a strong morning routine. I wake up very early. I'm a morning bird. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm working out all the time in the morning. It's the first thing I do, other than the new thing I'm doing, based on research, is receiving the first sun. So when the sun comes out, if you receive that first sun, it really sets your biorhythms. So you end up sleeping better if you're up with the sun. And so I've been doing that and absorbing the sun, meditating for about 10 minutes, and then I work out. So that's been pretty consistent for the last year. And it's really changed my life. I mean, it really is effective. So the research was correct. But yeah, I mean, that's basically, but I also work out for sanity, not vanity. Like it's my mental health hour. It's like something I have to do, and that gives me a lot of clarity. So a lot of people, like I remember I had a meeting early here, and I said, oh, okay, I have a meeting at 7 a.m. And they go, oh, so you're not going to work out tomorrow? And I said, no, that means I have to work out at 5. And they were like, why don't you just sleep? And I was like, because it really gets rid of the brain fog. So if I didn't work out, I'd be in my 7 a.m. meeting just like, what? Okay, what? So for me, that's important. My morning routine is pretty sacred.
We are out of time. Thank you both so much for this
Thank you.
great conversation.
Thank you so much. I love that we ended on my workout. It was based on research. I read the study. And
There
I was
you
like,
go. There you go.
What? This is crazy. Thank you all so much.